Welcome to Analytics Nexus. Thanks for joining us for Thomas Penning's presentation, Keys to Integrate Marketing Disciplines and Technology Across the Customer Experience. Thomas Penning strives to empower marketers and other decision-makers at John Hancock Investment Management by making data accessible at their fingertips through the use of key technologies. As head of marketing intelligence and technology, Thomas's work consists of centralizing all digital marketing data, creating ETL processes, and delivering insight via visualizations so that end users can make better decisions and spend more time executing marketing strategies and generating business.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. My name is Thomas Penning. I'm the head of marketing intelligence and technology at John Hancock Investment Management. And today I want to walk you through the keys to integrate marketing disciplines and technology across the customer journey. And specifically today, as you'll see as I'm walking you through this presentation, I've divided this up into two parts. And I think it's important for the audience tuning in today to understand the industry and the background that we're coming with. And then this latter half, I'll be talking about the specific technologies that we're using in order to move forward into our digital transformation. So John Hancock Investment Management is a wealth and asset management company as part of John Hancock, and our parent company is Manulife. So we act as John Hancock Investment Management in the US and as Manulife Investment Management in Canada, Europe, and then the rest of the world in Asia. And the reason why I want to highlight that is because it's a very specific industry and a very niche population that we're looking at here at working with, especially in B2B. We have a finite number of advisors that we can work with specifically in the US. Some people may say that number is upwards of 350,000, but basically that's what all the competitors are working towards. And as the years have gone, the dynamic of that industry has changed a lot. There's been fee pressure that has put a premium on working smarter. Everyone is competing against fees, so fees are no longer a relevant benchmark for competition. Advisors want fewer and deeper partnerships as well. There's less and less shop around between asset managers. So if you look at it from the our side and our purview, we are looking to create, also fewer and deeper partnership with those advisors. So it's all about finding that niche pool of advisors that we want to work with and then nurture. Product communication has elevated the importance of service and marketing, and that's great. That's why I still have a job today. Acceptable medium of business of communication have proliferated and they have changed over time. With the advent of social networks, you would have never thought in the past of talking to your friend over the internet. Nowadays, those mediums and social platforms are also acceptable means to converse with your financial advisors, and we see more and more of those interactions happening. So obviously, we have to be there where our target audience is. The advisors are looking also for ways to scale their business using content from asset management partners. So, a big thing in our industry and across industries in marketing, obviously, is content marketing, and it's all about creating content. We create thought leadership with in-house PhD writers that are creating content and that is optimized, and we want to make sure that that content is searchable and serves up the need of our advisors. And then the standards for content and digital experience have, clearly gone up, and I'll walk you through some examples on that sense. And that leads me to the fact that, our target audience is really much looking from different ways to engage with us across the widest range of content and applications. They want shareable investor education for their clients, so we have to address that as well and how that we can support their business. They want thought leadership content about what's happening in the market that's timely and relevant, but also evergreen. They use social media as a platform. They want to be able to self-serve as well on our web ecosystems. They want to be able to get assisted on those digital ecosystems via chat technology or not. And then obviously they want to be able to handle how we interact with them via subscription of content and so on. And that very much led us, earlier in the last decade, is to really optimize our advisor coverage model based on future potential. And I always say this is the premise, basically, of our digital transformation, was to revamp algorithmically how we go after our advisor population. So ultimately, the gist of it is that they're, still the sales model of people running out there around the country, knocking on doors and so on. And we call that the field. Those are the wholesalers trying to meet with advisors. Then there's the desk that's supporting, that pool of wholesalers, as well as reaching out to, prospecting leads and so on. And then, the bigger chunk of it is supported by marketing efforts and digital efforts, where we generate digital leads that we can then go up within the funnel. But that coverage model that we've applied, when it's AI driven, now allows us to have better business goals that we can align across the various departments. I'm sitting within the marketing department, but what is really important is how we interact with ultimately the sales department, the strategy department, the product department, and how we can all work together in terms of generating business. So digital as the lead across prospect, but also supports across the desk and the field. And this setup really allows us to run tactical campaigns. And I think that's really much the gist of what we all tuning in today is we all marketers around the world trying to be the best of the best at running tactical campaigns. And I love this quote here. And it's so true, because it's something that my boss have shared, in the past. Is first, when he was hired, he wanted to go directly to the end users and the consumers, and in this instance, to the financial advisors, and ask them, I want to know how and what are the things that you're looking for on our website. And most of them said, well, actually, we don't want to go on your website. We only go on your website to get specific documents, and that's it. And it's all about, and it's the dogma about capturing attention of your end consumers. And the currency of the internet is very much around capturing that attention. And it becomes more and more difficult, especially out there in the field, when you still have people running to offices and trying to set up meetings with those financial advisors to have our products on their platforms. How do we get that share of attention that everyone is fighting for? And going back to the example that I was just sharing, those advisors didn't want to give us more attention. They already got most of the information from the Wall Street Journal, Morningstar, Bloomberg. Why would I go on your website to get, your fund detail information where, I already have other sources over there? So they were able to get investor education to share with the clients, and their needs and preferences, have clearly evolved also. And what's out there to surface their needs has also greatly evolved. And on top of that, if that wasn't enough, you're always competing with the last great experience that a user has been having. So in our space, most people, would define within the wealth and asset management, the other big competitors that are working in that space. But actually, our competitors digitally are all of those guys, and they all share great experiences for every single product that they've created for end consumers. Obviously, our financial advisors are shopping on Amazon. They all have a Facebook profile. Who doesn't have a Netflix subscription nowadays? Best Buy is a real pillar on how they went through the digital transformation and digitally revamped the entire website ecosystem. So we really want to make sure that not only we offer a great experience, but we also offer something that goes beyond that. And our answer to that was to become a trusted partner through radical transparency. And radical transparency very much goes across all the thought leadership that we've created, and that's unbiased thought leadership supported by our multi-manager network. So we have unbiased managers that we work with that are creating content and that we push out there for financial professionals. And it's also around the tools and the deep analysis that we do that helps those financial advisors better connect with their investors. A great example is we've built a tool called Fund Compare that's on our website. Highly recommend everyone to go on jhinvestment.com. And that tool, we first of all is available to the public. You don't have to create, an account to access it. And then second of all, you are able to enter any funds within the universe of mutual fund and ETF and so on. So a lot of other firms would, from the get-go, ask you, hey, you have to put your ticker in there, and then you can use other funds to build a comparisons. In this instance, we actually want to avoid any false positive, and that's very much in the way we've been building digital experiences, is making sure that those digital experiences are created with financial advisors in our mind first, and then thinking about as well the type of data that we capture. So that's very much a concept of value creation. So the value that we create for our end users, but also value capture, thinking about we don't want false positive, and we also want to capture that breadth of data of funds that are being compared to one another, what type of competitive funds are being compared to one another, and so on. And digital experiences are 24/7. So serving advisors and investors on their own terms. We want Amazon to be up and running, as long as possible, and we as users want to be able to access Amazon's website as any time of the day or the night. It goes the same way, for web properties that we put out there. There's an aspect of self-service where we build dashboards. We allow financial advisors to follow funds or the literature, create custom created content and so on. And then there's a full service where we've enabled a chat functionality where financial advisors can directly talk to us. And that's kind of the landscape of where we are today. We've built a team and a structure that really allows us to have that amazing experience in a B2B world, but that's very similar to any B2C world in terms of how advanced we are in serving up digital experiences. So now I'm going to switch gears and dive into the meat around technology and how we got there. And I think the main point I want to show and talk about today is the fact that technology is not the differentiator, it's an enabler. Technology for so long has been a nitpicker where people have been able to, oh, I'll just buy this tool and then we should be all set. Or I'll just buy a SEO tool and then we'll do great SEO. I'll just buy an analytical tool and we'll do great web analytics. Well, it's a space that constantly evolved, and I'm sharing this slide here because this is how I came into a partnership with Claravine and started conversation a few years ago. Is I had built my own URL builder internally. So I built a tool mostly based on HTML, CSS, and JavaScript here that helped end users internally to pick specific fields over there, put the destination URL, have all those various dimensions that we're requiring them to put into the tracking code, and then at the bottom has been cut here, create on generate, and then they have their full URL build with the tracking code. But it's an evolving space. And that's a slide that really shows, how that space has been evolving over the past decade. I remember in the early 2010, it was fairly easy for a marketer to understand the ecosystem of technologies that were available. Fast forward to last year, when that Lumascape assessment has been done, there's well over 7,000 marketing-related technologies that are available out there across all the various, segments. So obviously, if when you're in a bigger firm, in a more corporate environment, you have to think strategically about the technology and pieces of technology you want to onboard in order to support your structure. And technology really supports how we reach our audience through what we called, the 5Ds or not, but it's every single stages that goes from internal ways of communicating and working together and setting up the strategy up to the end of the experience we're delivering. That's the value creation that we create for the end users. And then at the end of the day is delivering insights that feeds back internally. I'm sure you guys see where I'm going and that loop that's fitting in. And going back to, the previous a few slides that I've put out there, those logos are out there just as an example of technologies that sits in each of those buckets. But more and more, it's important for marketers and IT folks and business stakeholders to understand that some of those technologies are interchangeable, but what's really important is to understand how those technologies fit with one another. And obviously, if we can all praise, Claravine and how Claravine fits into that tech stack. So the first bucket, and I'm going to dive into each one of these, is around designs. And I think, this is the secret sauce, and going back to the fact that technology is not the differentiator, it's the enabler. Your secret sauce really relies into the type of segmentation that you do, the type of research that you do internally, the data that you capture from the experiences and ecosystems that you have out there, the feedback you receive from your customers through our NPS or surveys and so on, the business goals you've set and so on. And that's what drives your strategy internally and the strategic direction. The seventh phase is around developing. So let's say that you have a campaign that was based on a strategic direction. Now it's all about how you develop those customer-facing assets. And in this case, we have an agile development process that leverages a few tools in terms of storing creative assets, collaborating with one another, leveraging Jira. We can do some code development in GitHub or other places. And then human-centered design as well fits in there. That's more around understanding the UI and user experience that we create out there. But we go through user stories, user experience design, sprints prioritization, application development, how we develop that, do the QA and deployed, and a regular DevOps process. And ultimately, those are the assets that you see here: landing pages, white papers that we produce that we need to host on the website, new website features that we create, new digital tools such as the fund compare, and so on. So that's the one piece. You've created the asset. Now, the second piece is how you distribute that assets. And the way we structured here is that we have a dedicated team as part of the digital experience team within John Hancock Investment Management, where we have capabilities tailored for each of those outreach engagement. So there's a team that's dedicated on social media. There's a team that's dedicated on voice of customer and search. There's a team that's dedicated on marketing automation and emails. And those teams are responsible for the primary usage and maintenance of the tools that they're using as well. So obviously social media, well, the social media team is responsible for maintaining, our LinkedIn presence, Facebook presence, and then doing the outreach on those various platforms. But what's really crucial, especially here between the develop and distribute, is how you link the two. I always tell people, the world of web analytics and tag management is as if you have a side elevator shaft within a building. So your main building is your DevOps process, where the first floor is your dev environment. Then the second floor is QA, the third floor is stage, and then the penthouse is your production environment. And you just move furniture around and so on until you have the penthouse that you really want at the top of the floor. A tag management solution is a side elevator shaft that allows you to inject code, along the way. And it's very important. And the reason why I'm mentioning that is it's important to understand how those technologies feed into each other. And ultimately, that helps us to differentiate ourselves from, competitors offering either personalized user experiences, but also around the data, dimensions, and attributes that we capture on our web ecosystems. On top of that, we have some customer success tools, and then survey and NPS related tools that we have on the website. And in this instance, this is where between the develop, the distribute, and the differentiate, where digital marketing strategy comes in place. And you really need to have, a tool such as Claravine, in this instance, that brings those things together to understand how the out world that's out there and how we outreach people on social media and so on is feeding into the world that you cannot control, which is your web ecosystem. All of that creates data. In this instance here, you can have a BI tool that sits on top of it for visualization and intelligence, and then how that feeds back into your marketing model or your sales funnel in terms of leads. And that leads me to my second point, where it's awesome to have all that technology in place, but data really becomes a differentiator to provide value to your audience. And my job as the head of marketing intelligence and technology here is to make sure that data is really available at everyone's fingertips. If I ever come to the office and I see people manning around CSV files or spreadsheet, or worse, printing a spreadsheet, I think I failed my job and I can put my resignation down. Um, Jokes aside, what I thrive to do really is to making data that's living in silos available at every stakeholder's, employees, and marketers' fingertips. So where the ecosystem really becomes powerful is having those tools that make the connections between those data points. And implementing tracking codes allows you to understand how a specific post on Facebook performed versus another one, and then ultimately how those users that click through interacted with your digital ecosystem. But you have to stitch that data together, because that post that was on Facebook, well, that data lives in Facebook. And then those users that interacted with that post and click, then the Adobe tag gathered that tracking code and the query parameter, and you have all of that breadth of data that's coming in once users interact with your ecosystem. And I think you can get where I'm getting at here is a single source of actionable data really empowers your users to create value, and really empowers users to better understand the strategic direction, but also the digital marketing strategy that we're trying to put in place. I was on a roadshow probably 3 years around explaining what tracking codes are, or how web analytics are being perceived, ingested, or utilized, and how they could make an impact to the business. Now, I obviously want people to feel empowered to use those tools and then create their own strategic direction. Ultimately. So we've set up dashboard to enable those various teams to really see the power of what it is to create a campaign, how they can leverage the tracking codes that they've put out there, but then seeing the data, I think, is what makes all of that really, really powerful and engaging with those users. So you have that, feedback around analyzing, providing the data. They can empathize with the activities that they did. Yay or nay, it worked or it didn't work. Ideate around what's the next step, go back into the DevOps process if we have to enhance the experiences, and then ultimately distributing around campaign strategy and the various networks that we have. And there's no questions around that. Insight-driven marketing leads to more personalized experiences and interactions. The more data, and I know it's that creepy world that we're in, and I always tell people I'm the creepy guy that tracks everything on our websites. But ultimately, we really have it at heart that we want to offer the best experiences for the end users, and that's what we all thrive for over here. Our work has been, we've been very, very fortunate that it's been recognized by the community and our peers. Last year, we won Best Mutual Fund Website from the Internet Advertising Competition. We were honorary for the Webby Awards as well. And that was right next to the likes of Intuit and TurboTax. We won an Investment Management Education Alliance, a W3 Silvers, and the wealthmanagement.com Industry Award for our fund compare tool. So I very much appreciate everyone tuning in today to listen to this session. I thank you all, and I look forward to answering your questions on Slack.
Thanks so much for watching this presentation. Join us on the Analytics Nexus Slack to talk with our presenters about this topic and more.